From training to EMTs to the latest rescue equipment, Long Beach Lifeguards have kept their eyes open for tools and techniques that would help them save lives. But those weren't the only changes. Yeah, a lot has changed, but lifeguarding's most important resource is the same today as it was when the story began. People, a special kind of individual with skills, dedication, and heart.
We lived right on the canal growing up, and we'd see these orange rescue boats going by our house, and with the lifeguards working on the boats. And my twin brother and I always hoped at one time that we'd become a Long Beach lifeguard.
We would just kind of hang out and watch the lifeguards and that type of thing, and run and get coffee for them and talk to girls.
And Jim Harris, and Jim came over to me and says, "Hey, you're down here every day. Why don't you go take the test and come to work?" And so I took the test and I went to work.
All my friends, we were swimmers and water polo players in competition, and we all went from our competitive swimming into lifeguarding. It's just something you just did in those years. Swimmers became lifeguards.
We would make easily 100 rescues a day. Just kids going over drop-offs. Nothing glorious, you just had to constantly watch for bubbling water, under which would be somebody who was not going to come back up unless you got him.
You'd see a big crowd of people, well, you knew there was something wrong. So you'd race over there, or go over there and find out what's going on. Usually somebody crashed or did something.
When we'd swim out to them, they'd be in riptides, and their eyes would be big as saucers.
I tossed the buoy over to him, and he grabbed hold of, over there, because he was really in trouble. He was going to drown if I hadn't got there.
And you knew they were afraid, and we'd swim out, hand them the rescue can, talk to them a little bit, try to relax them, and tell them how to hold on to the can, and then pull them back into the beach.
And I bring this kid back in, and I get about waist deep in water, and he comes up alongside, and then he starts swearing at me for embarrassing him.
Well, what did you do that for? I was okay. I didn't need any rescuing. They didn't want to. They didn't want to look bad in front of their friends.
The tricky ones were out in the middle when somebody was too well oiled up that couldn't swim, rented a paddleboard and slipped off. They disappeared immediately. You could tell that was where they went down because the bubbles are still coming up.
Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something that just kind of caught my attention. Something went off the float down there, and I just looked at it for a second. I just took off running, ran down the beach, out the ramp, onto the float. And as I looked over the edge, there was maybe a small child of about 1 to 2 years old that was just under the water, kind of turning and floating and looking up at me. And there were 2 people sitting on the float that didn't even see it.
And Roy told me this guy is swimming out there, and he doesn't know he's in a riptide. We better hit the water right now. He's going to need help. So we both hit the water, and of course, being a sprinter, I'm out there quite a ways ahead of Roy. And I looked all around, and there's nobody out there. And at last I saw a tuft of brown. I reached over and pulled him up. It was the guy. I had him by his hair. And when I pulled him out of the water, he wasn't breathing, unconscious, white as a sheet. And I just felt terrible because I felt that I'd lost my very first rescue. And the next day we were both pretty quiet, feeling pretty bad about it. When a lady came up and she said, I want to thank both of you for saving my husband's life yesterday.
I was working an area called the Hole, and I saw this hand, and it was sticking above the water like this. And I ran down there and I looked off the drop-off, and here this child was, and his eyes were big, and I reached down and grabbed him, and he said, "Thanks, Mr. Lifeguard, I know you'd come and get me." And a lot of those people that we pull out, there's a good chance a lot of them would have been dead if we hadn't been there.
There was never a day in my entire life I ever felt anything but pride being a Long Beach lifeguard because of that very reason.
There was never a day that I dreaded coming to work, and I love the outdoors, I love helping people, and it was a perfect fit.
With all the innovations that have come over the years, the main intent was to save a life. How to get to a victim faster and quicker and provide a device that they could float on, feel confident on, and get back to shore safely.
And it sort of boggles my mind to think 76 years later what all the new folks have done. The new equipment, new ways to do things. Just think radio came in those days. I'm just very thankful that I'm one little link in that chain of people that save lives.
It's a great feeling. Lifeguarding's the greatest. It's the greatest.